chill.
Welcome back to another episode of Nerds on Ice, where cool nerds get fired up on today's hot topics. As always, I'm your host, Chris Fury, and now let's meet our nerds, our cool nerds for the evening. First up, we have Jen Markham. She's an amateur Star Wars cosplayer and has built more than 20 costumes from the Star Wars films and television shows. She writes and performs Star Wars comedy skits on her TikTok page, which has so far amassed more than 300,000 followers. As a costumer, she's featured in Star Wars Insider, has been a guest on several podcasts, and in 2018 won the Novus Division in the Grand Prix of Cosplay at Fan Expo Canada. And she's been a previous Geek of the Week on the CDS show. She lives in New York City with her husband, Jeremy, and her cat, Neville. Thanks for coming on, Jen.
Thanks for having me.
Next up, we have Brent and Jamie, who are a happy couple who met while building a detention cell. Interesting and maybe kinky. They collect Star Wars merch, play D&D, and make nerdy TikToks as the Grey Warden and Mando Girl. They are members of the Star Wars Indiana, which is the local face of the 501st Legion and Rebel Legion. They are also members of the Mandalorian Mercs Costume Club. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Thanks for having us, guys.
We also have Tommy D returning to the show. He is the host of the Cosmic Disaster Show and fearless leader of the Circle of Nerds. He is a Renaissance nerd who is a retired member of the 501st and Rebel Legions, as well as the Mandalorian Mercs Costume Club. Thanks for coming on, Tommy.
Well, I thank you for having me. And I just want to point out, I'm only retired because I can't fit into any of my armor anymore. I've gained a little bit of weight. And plastic armor is not forgiving.
It's not. But last but most certainly and definitely not least, we have Tom Hutchens, aka Mandalore the Uniter, founder and CEO of the Mandalorian Mercs Costume Club, here with us tonight. He was turned into a Star Wars Legends character in 2012's Star Wars, The Essential Guide to Warfare, and Star Wars, The Bounty Hunter Code in 2014. For more information on the Mercs, visit MandalorianMercs.org. Thanks for coming on, Tom.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So tonight's topic, this is the way, or is it? And we will be discussing Star Wars Mandalorian cosplay, what's in the aspects of how everything has come into play since the creation of Star Wars and the Mandalorian. So let's start finding out about everybody. Jen, let's start with you. What made you start getting into Star Wars cosplay and your famous TikTok videos of the Stormtrooper mom?
I mean, I've always been a Star Wars fan. Like, people ask, when did you become a Star Wars fan? Like, it's been ubiquitous since always. You know, it's always been part of the pop culture. We had like the soundtrack albums growing up. I remember going to like more recent movies in the theaters and seeing them on TV, and it's just always been like a part of my pop culture sensibility. And I think when The Force Awakens came out, you know, as a grown up, I'm like, you know what? I've always loved the costumes, and what am I waiting for? So I started building them, and you build one, and it's like an addiction. You keep building more and more and more. So, and then this year, I think with quarantine, a lot of people like me joined TikTok because they were looking for something to do and fill the time. And I've just loved it. I've just like there's no events, there's no troops right now because we're all stuck at home. So it's a way to kind of put on the costume and do something just really fun. And I like to laugh personally. I like to laugh at things. So I try to make stuff that makes me laugh. So.
Grey Warden and Nerd Mando Girl, what got you guys into the Star Wars cosplay?
Well, I grew up with Star Wars as a part of my life. You saw the originals in the theaters, and it's just been a big part of my life. And what got me started in the costuming was I was at a Weird Al concert, and here came the encore. All these guys came out on stage, and I'm like, what is this? I started researching it and found out, hey, I could do this myself. Joined the found the 501st. About that time, there was a company that I'm not going to name because they're a little controversial right now, was doing a big wave of costumes coming out for TKs. And I got one secondhand, put the kit together. And within about a year of that concert, I was up there on stage with Weird Al. And that was incredible. I did it like twice within 2 weeks. I was a substitute on the first one, and it was crazy. And so that's how I got into it.
So I guess I'm the puppy out of everyone then, because I didn't really grow up with the original Star Wars stuff, I guess. But I was a fan ever since I was younger. But what really got me into it was more of, I love the Mandos, the uniqueness of the armor and everything like that. My best friend actually bought my bucket for me. That was the kind of the push to get me to, hey, you need to really work on this. Was going through a lot, had to deal with a really bad situation with my family and everything at the time. So I had to put my kit to the side. But during that time, that's actually when I met my husband, because my clan leader for the Mandalorian Works called me up and said, hey, you know, I know you're working on this still, but do you want to come out, meet everyone, and we can help you, you know, kind of push you in the right direction, because we didn't have an armor party at that time. But came out, met my husband, and started to work on everything. And I got approved actually right before Star Wars Celebration in Chicago, and that was my first troop. So, but the charity aspect was the main big thing for me. We would go to a lot of Comic-Cons. I was a single mother, so I would take my son to them and everything. Actually, one of our good friends, I have a picture of my son shooting a really good friend in Scott right between the eyes in his TK with a Nerf gun. And they were raising money for charity. And that's one of my favorite pictures that I have of my son. And so I looked into everything. I knew that they were going, doing charity stuff, like going to visit children in hospitals, raising money for different things. My nephew was a Riley baby, and that's a big children's hospital in Indiana. And so when I signed up, I that was one of my main goals, was be able to go and do that troop. And I actually got to do one of them. So hopefully once COVID's over, I'll get to do more. So
Tommy D.
I'm sorry, I was pushing buttons. I apologize.
No,
Lifelong Star Wars fan. I actually saw Star Wars in 1977 in the theaters. And it was my dad and my asshole brother, who's a couple years older than me, relentless bully, picked on me my whole life. We're in there, Star Wars begins, and I'm sitting there, my dad is sitting there, and then my dad's sitting in the middle of us, because we cannot sit together, my brother and I. There's no way. So, the opening scene, Vader comes out on screen for the very first time, surveys the carnage, and I just hear the sniffling, and I look over, and my brother, my tormentor, is bawling. He's terrified of Darth Vader. Absolutely terrified. In that instant, Darth Vader became my hero. In that instant. And I've been a fan ever since. I had no idea about the costuming. I had absolutely no clue about that. My wife and I were stationed in Germany. I think this was like 2010-ish. And I was researching just some Boba Fett images. And I actually came across a picture. The Mercs will know who this is, Hydra. I saw her snow Mandalorian. And I was like, oh my God, that's the coolest thing ever. I didn't know that people did this sort of thing. And I had been playing Star Wars Galaxies from day one to the day they pulled the plug. And so I saw that, and I was like, oh, I want to do this. And then that was my gateway drug. Then I found the 501st, and then I found the Rebel Legion. And before I knew it, I had a TIE pilot, I had Phase 1 and 2 Captain Rex, and then eventually the Mando as well. And yeah, it's like, just inject it right into my veins, and I'm good to go.
Yeah. It's like tattoos and piercings, they're addicting.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
So I'm gonna just say it, Mandalore the Uniter. What made you birth this huge comeuppance of people that's into this family?
That's always such a good question when people ask it. Well, it really starts, I guess, back, when I first saw Star Wars, which was the first movie I was old enough to see was Return of the Jedi. I was 5 years old, living with my family in Florida at the time. And I remember so vividly when the only thing that I really cared about was when I first saw Boba Fett in the movie, that 10 seconds where you cumulatively where you see Boba Fett and it's like, oh my gosh, this character looks so awesome. This is like the coolest character ever. At 5 years old, of course, I'd seen like E.T. was the only other movie I'd ever seen before that. So it's like, this is the coolest character ever. And then like 10 seconds later, he's dead. There's like instant hero, instant watch your hero die. So I grew up with this, this subliminal sort of scarring, I think, from that, and that I wanted to bring Boba Fett back somehow. It's like I gotta bring my childhood hero back to life. And of course, I grew up as a Star Wars fan. I had all the figures. I had the old Glad bag style Halloween costumes. I don't know if any of y'all remember those, but it was like a plastic bag with Darth Vader's face on one. I think there was a C-3PO one too. I had the Darth Vader one, so I had the cool one. I wore that thing, but I wore it out. And anyway, as I got older and I got into playing Star Wars Galaxies when it first came out also. And of course, my character in the game was a Mandalorian, and I started a guild in there with who would be my wife at the time. She was a Twilight dancer. We met in Mos Espa Cantina, which is a great story.
Oh, memories.
That sounds
memories.
Like man's right waiting to happen there.
I was a Zabrak bounty hunter, and I met a Twilight dancer in a cantina on Tatooine, and we ended up getting married in real life. So, I mean, it's great. It's a great story. But
John Hilton sing that one.
greatest Star Wars game of all time.
It really was. It really, really was. But I started a guild in there called Mandalorian Mercenaries. And, my wife, she took me to Dragon Con in 2006. It was believe it or not, that was my very first convention. Now, for anybody listening to this out there, I suggest that you don't make Dragon Con your very first convention.
Neither celebration.
Yeah, if you've never been to any other, start small. Start with your local general sci-fi convention, and then work up to Dragon Con, because it is a huge culture shock. I mean, I'm just saying huge as in Trump huge. It's a huge culture shock, okay? It's something you'll never forget. And so anyway, I saw some guys when I was there in Mando armor, and custom Mandalorian armor costumes. And got to talking with them, and they're like, well, we're not really part of the 501st. They don't let us in. And they didn't really have a place of their own. I'm like, man, I could bring my character out of Star Wars Galaxies. I could build the armor and just wear it, as a costume. And so I sat down and I found a couple places on the internet, the Dented Helmet, which it's still around, and another place called Heroes, Villains, and Mandalorians, and just got to talking with some people, and we decided that, hey, why don't we, meet up and see if we can't start some sort of physical group where we can represent custom Mandos, because we were kind of cast off from all these other places. And I did that. I built just a rudimentary website and some forums, and people kind of just filtered in, and then it became this 800-pound gorilla 14 years later. So, I mean, that's basically where, and over the last 14 years, I make my own costumes, obviously, but I would say probably about 7 years ago, I really transitioned into teaching people how to do it, because I do it very unique. And then I use a lot of old armor smith techniques. So I use steel, I use metals, and there's not many people in the world that do that. So I teach people how to do that, because there's very few of us that actually use metal. There's even fewer that use the ancient techniques that armor smiths used back in the old days. And so it's just important for me to be able to teach people how to do that stuff, because I won't be here forever and someone else has to do it after me. So
not only is he Mandalore the Uniter, he's also the Armorer in some it's kind of form, So this question is for you, for Tom and Jen. The recognition, well, actually for all of you, the recognition you received from your original designs or your original armors and everything else, and just like what Tom was saying, using this actual metal work and armor work, to get that recognition from people, how does that feel?
You want me to start?
Hey, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sure. I've never actually done an original character. I'm not sure if that's what you meant. I've only ever done some 501st costumes, and then Din Djarin. But it's great, and especially, you know, when you see, back when we all trooped and go out into events, just when kids respond and kids get excited and kids' eyes go wide and they want a photo and they want an experience with you. I mean, the same thing when you go to a hospital. It's why we do it. I mean, obviously we do it because we want to look cool and we want to look like an action figure, right? But I think that's the biggest payoff is when kids respond to it. It's just, I mean, you're walking on air, you know?
Right.
Yeah, no doubt.
I agree with that. I mean, that's definitely part of it. For me personally, you know, I think back to 2008, you know, the members at the time of Merck's was a very small organization at the time. We might have had, in 2008, we might have had 75 members, maybe 100 total. And back then, we really didn't have CRL. So if you had like some chest plates and a helmet, you know, you could get in. It was just send an application, you remember. Well, back then, you know, the whole Mandalorian the Uniter name, you know, it's not something that I didn't choose that for myself. And I didn't really have that back then. That's something the members voted on, you know, to me. So once they did that, basically my look has been the same. You know, my armor, as far as that goes, it might change a little in look, but fundamentally it's been the same for almost 14 years. Same color scheme, even some of the parts. I mean, I've even moved, like I've got version 1 parts that I use on my version 5 armor now, you know, because of that. To me, it's the recognition is more of a duty, I think, to my members in that, and the Mandalorian community as a whole, in that, you know, people see you as this thing, but the reality of it is that anybody can be, you know, anybody can look great, anybody can do these things. You know, all they have to do is put themselves into it and put themselves into that spot of, I want to do something great. I want to do something great for others, and I want something great to come of it. And I think that's really what, you know, that's where I come from in this.
Great Warden, mind to go?
I think some of my best memories of the costuming and is when I started with my stormtrooper. My second troop was at a YMCA. It was a small event, and there were a few of us there. And I had my bicep came loose, and I had my son with me as a handler. And we went back to the changing area to, you know, take a little break, get some water. And as I was coming back out, I came around a corner in a hallway, and there was a family with a small boy. They came around the other end of the hallway at the same time, and he just lit up and he just screamed, "It's a stormtrooper!" You know, and it's just stuff like that. You can't really describe how that feels, you know?
Right.
It's like a kid on Christmas morning.
Yeah. And he doesn't see how big you're smiling inside the armor because you're just this faceless helmet. You know, it's a great feeling when you have moments like that.
Yeah.
That make it all worthwhile.
I gotta say, for those who are actually will get a chance to watch this, their background is so cool that it just throws me off. It's such a simple background, but it just looks so, you know, and I keep just like, oh, I gotta watch The Mandalorian third time today.
We get a lot of compliments on it.
Yeah.
So
for me, it was also the kids' responses. I remember one of my favorite troops, and it was actually a May the 4th troop. We had a little one, I would say about 2 or 3.
Yeah,
but he was very intimidated by Brent and his Shory, and his shore trooper. Just kept on giving him side eye, and it was just like watching him kind of very intimidated. We had the mics, and Brent just kind of deep voice, you know, and
in character
and everything. And you know, as Amanda, we can take off our buckets, you know. So I took off my bucket and was just talking to this little boy. Instantly, once he realized that we were friendly, he's like, "Oh, I want to know everything about you." And then he turns to him and says, "Take off your head too."
Yeah, take my head.
Which he can't, but
sorry, son.
can't do it. But it's definitely in the kids' reactions, and even helping people, you know, even adults to get a feel of costuming for the first time. You know, I'm fairly new at being 501st Rebel Legion and in the Mercs, to be honest. And I know how lost I was trying to figure out techniques. I mean, my paint scheme at first was horrid, to say the least. It looked bad. Too much weathering, way too much weathering. But now I can go back and just help people with some of my videos on TikTok, be funny. We don't get to troop, so just having that entertainment aspect to it, but also to help unite people into coming into these clubs, because even if they're not approvable right away, it still could be a fun thing they can do.
Yep, absolutely.
And I don't like the people who, well, I just posted a video about gatekeeping.
No gatekeeping.
Exactly.
Yeah, gatekeeping.
Yeah,
No
no
gatekeeping
gatekeeping.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the TikTok, we get a lot of questions about our costumes, how we make them, how they were made, what the different parts are, and well, Jen especially is really good at describing.
Yeah,
your
you
videos
break
are
down
awesome.
your videos very well.
You're very good at describing how you do things, and we try and help people. We've had people say, "Hey, you've inspired us to start making costumes," and it's just
That
a
feels
wonderful
good.
feeling.
Yeah.
That feels very good.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, as a personal aspect, and this might be Jen might have relate to this, even the females coming into the Star Wars storylines, at first, let's be honest, it was a very male driven kind of story, and walking in as a female with this badass armor on, I get stopped and they're like, "Oh my gosh, we love your helmet, we love your armor, what can I do to do this?" And even to get even females to feel like, "Oh, I could be empowered, I could sit there and do stuff like this, I can build armor and look like a badass bitch." I like that. And so I had one actually at the last troop. She made her first foam armor, and I sat there and I talked to her for a good 30 minutes, just telling her, "Hey, this is what I did, this is what I would suggest, this is how you can get to know and communicate with us while you're working on your armor and everything." So yeah, it's definitely rewarding.
It's great. It's good that you mentioned that, because with characters, such badass female characters like Cara Dune, Ahsoka Tano, Bo-Katan, the Armorer, you have this more inclusive group. It's anybody can do it. Everyone can do it. If you have the skill, you can, or if you don't have the skill, you can go to somebody who knows how. Jen, like you have these great TikTok videos, how you made the pram for the child, and one of our members, it was very greatly appreciated for it because he built one himself. So to have that inclusion, how does that feel for you?
It's good. I mean, I'm just listening to everyone like, "Oh, right, I'm in these clubs too." I mean, I'm not in the Mercs, but I'm in the 501st and the Rebel Legion. And for my first few years of cosplaying, that was my whole world. It's just like, oh, my friends are Legion. We talk in Legion terms and Legion standards and blah, blah, blah. But the great thing about TikTok is it's much more democratic. And I'm really enjoying that. And that it's not only with the costume aspect, but there's people just like talking about Star Wars and the characters. I'm like, my costume nerd friends don't do that. All we do is talk about fabric and paint. It's been nice. And then I like reaching people, like you were saying, Jamie, that people are totally new to it, because I don't have that community when you're ensconced in the Legions. You know what I mean? So that's been really great. I like helping people from the jump. I feel a little out of water because I'm a new Mandalorian costumer. I have built face characters, and I sew, and I have a scout trooper and mud trooper, blah blah blah. This is my first, so I'm like, well, I go to the Mercs, website, and they have great techniques. You can make armor out of a Rubbermaid toad. You can print it. You can foam. There's all kinds of things. Like, it's almost like the most interesting and inclusive place to start. So it's been an honor to be like that resource for people, but I'm learning too.
You never stop learning.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Very true.
Never. 14 years, I still learn new stuff every day.
And the same thing when I pick a new costume, it's like, oh, is it something new I can do? Great, I want to do it. I've learned something new with every costume I've built, and I love that.
Good. So we've spoken about what these characters meant for you, what the path of being This Is the Way has done for you, and the inclusivity and everything above, the good, all the good. But unfortunately, 2020 has taken conventions from us, human interaction. What has this meant for you? Has this caused you to be more creative? Has it kind of what are the pluses and what are the minuses? What's the drawbacks? We'll start with you, Tom.
Well, pluses probably are that I think I have met virtually more Mercs members this year than from around the world than I have in the past, because of all the virtual armor parties that they've been doing, all the virtual gatherings, and they've been inviting me, to depending on, I mean, it didn't matter where they're at. I've done one in Australia, I've done one for Spain, I've done one for UK, I've done them here all over the US and a couple in Canada. I mean, I've had to wake up at the one in Australia, I woke up at 1 a.m. my time to go hang out with the Australian Mercs members for a couple hours. So, I mean, it's been great getting to meet people that, normally it would take like a celebration to meet.
Yeah.
If that, or people who I would probably never meet just because, they're that far away from me. That's been the plus. The minus is, I think there's been, you can tell that members, there's been a lot of, you can tell, you can feel sort of the depression, I think, in the members, not being able to troop, not being able to get out there. We've actually had a couple of suicides in Mercs this year from members, and that's been tough. It's been tough because, you don't, nothing really prepares you for things like that. And, it's just difficult when you're so disconnected from people that you're normally so connected to. And so you have to find ways to make up for that. And, I've always been doing a lot live streams for years. I've done live streams, but I've really bumped that up a notch. And I do 2 to 3 live streams usually a week anymore, just to try to get out there and meet, get with people, teach them about the costumes, and just maybe give them a little bit of hope that there's light at the end of the tunnel. So, I think that's been the real negative part, though, is just that it has been kind of a weight on everybody's shoulders with all this going on.
Grey Warden Mandalorian.
Yeah, it's been a big change. Going from sometimes 3 events in a day to virtually nothing. Not just conventions, like regular trooping events. A lot of people in the clubs become as close as family to you, and you go from seeing them pretty much every weekend or every other weekend to just, virtually talking to them. It was a big change. You just kind of sit there and it's like, man, what am I doing this weekend? Oh, I don't know. Sitting here staring at the wall. I used to drive 2.5 hours to go troop for 3 hours and, enjoy that, and then sit down with everybody for a meal afterwards. And, they were family.
Yeah.
It has been a big change. And he got me started on TikTok, so that yeah, she created a monster, and that's been a nice little outlet. I've got all these costumes sitting around. I might as well use them for something. But it's not the same, and honestly, I don't see it being the same anytime soon. Honestly,
I was gonna say for me, the last trip we did was actually in October, and that was the first one since February. So we have some very periodically. We've dropped down the numbers quite a bit, and we have to still do social distancing. And if we're not wearing a bucket or something, we have to make sure that have a face covering. So the Jedi are running around with face coverings all the time. but we got to do what we got to do. You know, we still got to social distance, even with pictures, which kind of look a little awkward when you have this little child that wants to come up to you and get a really nice picture. But I started doing TikToks even while I was working on my armor. So I remember he was like, what is this? Why do you have this interest in doing this? And I'm like, well, it's fun. And, you know, I thought
it was really dumb.
You did.
This is dumb.
And I was like, well, you know, I took theater in high school and everything like that. I was like, I mean, when you're in costume, you have to act. I mean, you have to act the character you're in. And so I thought it was a very creative outlet, since I haven't done any, even though it's lip syncing and definitely like over exaggeration a lot of times for these videos. It gave me that outlet to have fun, and it's helped us. We're actually fairly newlyweds. We actually just hit our 1-year anniversary. And for this being
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. And for this being our first year and having to deal with COVID and being newlyweds and everything, I told him this better be to death do us part, because it's been so crazy. But TikTok has helped us. We both help each other out with each other's TikToks. We like doing TikToks together. Whatever. But I'm really hoping COVID will hopefully cease to exist eventually. But unfortunately, once again, I agree. I don't see that happening anytime soon. And it really does sadden me. I have seen a lot of depression within our groups, within our extensive family members is what I like to call them. And it's really sad. Even we have been depressed over the situation. And I'm sorry to hear that within our groups, that we've had something as serious as some suicides. Hopefully, unfortunately, in the relatively anytime soon, though, I don't see that getting any better though. So,
Tommy D.
Yes, Chris. Could you repeat the question, please?
What are the plus and minuses? I know the question. I know the answer. But let the world know, what are the plus and minuses to 2020 and what it's done to the conventions, the get-togethers, all of it? Yeah. What is it? What are the pluses? What are the minuses?
The pluses, for me, this is amazing. Tom, I agree with you. I mean, you encounter people that normally you wouldn't have. I mean, this is awesome. I mean, I love this. I absolutely love this. I cannot express how much I love this. I'm an Army guy, and when I got out of the military, I was very lost. I was in the military for a long time. I got out, I was lost. I didn't know. I had no direction. I didn't have my unit anymore. I didn't have that family. And then I discovered this. I discovered the Mercs and the 501st and the Rebel Legion, and now I have a family again. And now it's even got military structure. So it was very, very easy to get into that. But it was family, man. And it just felt good to be a part of that. We've got, for my Mando, we have House Crast. So we kind of created a house within, that is beyond clans. So we've got members in the Netherlands. We've got members in Puerto Rico. We've got members here in the States and in Germany. And, so it's like we're this international family, people from the 501st, people from the Rebel Legion, from the Mercs. We're all this amazing, wonderful family. We fight, we argue sometimes like real families do. But, Jen, like you had mentioned, you're new to the Mando thing, but you're still very much a part of this family, I mean, and you feel that, you are a part of this family. We all are. We have this shared love of Star Wars. We have this shared love of dressing up like life-size action figures, and we also have a shared love for helping others. The 501st, of course, and the Mercs and the Rebel Legion, one of the founding principles is charity. We go out and we do for others. We don't get paid for this. It is hard. It is hot. It is uncomfortable. No one's getting paid. you know, one of my first troops, I was in a Phase 1 Captain Rex, and this was the one that changed my life. We went to an oncology ward, a pediatric oncology ward. Forget it. I was done. Prior to that troop, I was dressing up because it was cool and fun, and I was living out my childhood fantasies. The second I walked on that ward and I saw those children, terminally ill children that would not be here 5 months, 6 months, 10 months down the road, changed. Everything changed. The reason why I troop, the reason why I do all of this changed in that instant. And now with COVID, and COVID sucks, but the fact that we can do this, that we can get together, we can share this, you know, we can share our love, and we can share, you know, this nerdy, wonderful thing that we do, that's a huge plus, a huge plus.
Good.
You know, and the minus is I don't get to hang out with you crazy people in person. That's the minus, you know, but we will. And it does push us all to do more. I mean, it pushed all of us into TikTok. You know, I wouldn't have messed with that. That was my daughter uses TikTok. It's just weird and cringy for the old man to do it. I'm not messing with TikTok. Get out of here. But now I'm like planning. I have like a content calendar planning out what I'm going to do for TikTok next. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Well, you know, if you're Tommy knows, but I've kind of coined the year of 2020 as COVID's bitch ass. That's just what it is. It's giving me nothing else. Jen, what are the plus and minuses for you dealing with or not being able to deal in conventions and things of the such?
I mean, I love to focus on the positive. Obviously, negatives speak for themselves. And I'm from New York City, and you know, we all forget because we're doing so great now. The New York City was like the worst right away, right? And I don't know anyone in New York who doesn't know someone who had it or who doesn't know someone who died of it. Like it was really it was terrifying at the beginning, and so it doesn't get any worse than that. It's awful, and it's awful that it's still going on. I mean, I've just been really blessed though with the positives. My TikTok's been really good to me, and I've made so many friends and met so many people. I'm just kind of sitting here going, like, what is this 501st girl doing in the Mercs, like with these amazing Mercs people? Like that wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have like taken the time to make this costume and to create these characters and do all this stuff had TikTok not happened. And I was kind of looking for that free time like a lot of people were doing. Mm-hmm. I learned new skills and forced us all to be a little more creative. Like it's something you want to put I put my costumes on way more now than I did trooping like once a week. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I put a costume like 3 or 5 times a week, and that never happened before. So I'm like preparing things, and in a way, I'm costuming more than ever, right? I mean, obviously, losing Celebration was really sucked. You know, I mean, I know we just had one, but it was obviously something we're all really looking forward to.
Oh yeah.
And I know, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not healthy, and so that was sad. But ultimately, I just like focusing on the positive, just meeting new people and learning new things. And I made a new costume. I probably would have just sat around and like, oh, I'm busy, I'm working, blah blah blah. It's like, no, the season 2 is coming. Let's build this thing. You know, it's been good to me with and I'm a little introverted anyway. Maybe you wouldn't get that from TikTok. So, you know, I'm okay with like maintaining friendships over Zoom and phone calls and stuff like that. Like I'm okay. I survive okay with not going out and seeing people as much. I know other people are really struggling with that, but I've been okay. So.
Well, I'm gonna call this one, guys. This is a great show. I hate this ending part.
That's it? That was the fastest. Wow. Right.
We hated them so fast. But I want to thank our guests, and we'll do a quick rundown of where everyone can be found. So we'll start with you, Jen.
Okay, TikTok's the big one. It's at Jen Markham, at JenMarkham, and also on that is my links to my YouTube and my Instagram. But TikTok's the main thing. A lot of fun there.
Grey Warden and Mandel Girl.
TikTok, _Grey_Warden. That's a big one for me.
And then Mando Girl, which is MANDOGURL at TikTok. But our Instagrams are both linked in our profiles.
Yep.
So.
All right, and congratulations on the 1-year anniversary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mandalore the Uniter.
Yeah, that's the easy one. Facebook, it's Mandalore the Uniter, and on Instagram, it's Mandalore the Uniter. So, and then Twitter, which I rarely use, but sometimes it's Heed the Call.
Look at that.
I grabbed all the good names while I could.
Tommy D.
Oh, like I said, I don't have my own personal identity anymore. So it's just Circle of Nerds everywhere. CircleOfNerds.com, Circle of Nerds on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, OnlyFans. There's nothing on OnlyFans. There's nothing on OnlyFans though. So although we may have something with some peanut butter coming up. So if y'all like peanut butter, OnlyFans.com/Circle of Nerds. But I don't know about no jelly just yet. But yeah, that's it. We're all over the place. Circle of Nerds.
Break out the bread.
Oh, well, and as always, I am your unforgettable protector and host, Chris Fury. And until next time, remember to educate yourself and others, entertain yourself and others, and empower yourself and others. And for this evening, and until next time, Chris Fury, out.
Hey, guys.
All right, everyone, chill.
To hear all of our podcasts, look for Circle of Nerds on iTunes, iHeart, Pandora, Spotify, or wherever you get podcasts. And if you want to see these weirdos in their natural habitat, just look for Circle of Nerds on YouTube and Patreon. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode.